I have some other comment, and I'll distance myself for a minute from life science, and I'll just connect myself to the very last talk that we heard from you on nature, and it doesn't relate to you directly, but it relates to something, to a new culture that evolved in academic life, and that's the worshipping of numbers, of ranking, of impact factor, of H factor, of citation. And it's really of deep concern. And I find that in China, this disease is even more severe than in the West. And and we should really take it very seriously. I just want to tell you from my own lesson. We published our first paper, which in my opinion is the most important paper ever published in the history of the ubiquitin system, in an awfully obscure journal called BBRC. Biochemical and Biophysical Research Communication. It's a journal that has an impact factor ranging between 1.5 and 2. The paper was cited more than 3,000 times, this one, and more than probably the CV of many of the professors, the complete CV of many of the professors that I know. The second paper, we aimed high. We sent it to Cell. Ben Lewin, that was at that time the editor, took him about 2 minutes to reject the paper. At that time, there was no Federal Express. So we estimated that the time that it went in the mail back and forth, it stayed about 10 minutes on his desk, and then we communicated it to PNAS via a good friend. And these are the two papers that were cited by the Nobel Committee, and actually the first one is the most important one. Why I'm mentioning it? Not because you can make a Nobel Prize with a paper published in a low-impact journal, but because we stopped to read the contents. We don't read anymore about the quality of candidates for promotion, and we evaluate our peers just by number. We rank them, how many Cell papers they have, how many Nature papers they have, and so on and so forth. And we became awfully superficial in our approach to academic life. I think that it has also some other side that was caught up by Hal Varmus, who is the president of the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Institute, and himself a Nobel laureate in physiology or medicine for the discovery of oncogenes, along with Mike Bishop. And there is some other side to this journal, to some of them at least, and I'm referring mostly to the journal, which is, in my opinion, immoral. And I'm referring to the financial side. These are not journals that are run by societies, by professional societies. And again, my world is very limited, so I can refer only to journals in life sciences, like the Journal of Biological Chemistry that belongs to the American Society of Molecular Biology and Biochemistry, and Science that belongs to the American Association for Advancements of Science, and so on. These are money-making journals. And they're making a lot of money, and Ben Lewin sold Cell for several $100 million. And meanwhile, when Cell started to grow like Nature, and to grow its sister journals like Molecular Cell and Neuron, it became a more than a several $1 billion industry. Now, what happens in these journals, that we are sending our papers to these journals, they are reviewed for free by us, and then our libraries that are built on the taxpayers' money have to pay $20 or $30 or $40,000 per year in order to subscribe, so we shall read our own papers. So, I mean, this really doesn't make any sense, and the journal's prices hike every year tremendously. And the libraries are spending huge amount of money on this subscription that basically belong to the taxpayer, because all our institutes are running on taxpayers' money, and we are feeding into this private industry. So this is a side issue, but an important one. So I think that we should think very carefully about what we are doing to ourselves, how we are putting our own fate, academic fate, and maybe some of the financial fate of our own institutions in the hands of these journals. And I must tell you that the change has been very abrupt, because when I grew up, and I'm not that old, I mean 25, 30 years ago when I was a graduate student, this was not the culture. It was a completely different culture, and it changed abruptly. And we are the ones to look at the mirror and to blame ourselves, and as a consequence, we are the one to make the change that is so necessary now.